Okay. Vlad, I've got a quick question here for you. What pen testing standards do you cover?
So we have certain internal developed pen test standards. We also use a pen test standard for web applications known as OWASP, Web Application Testing Standard. So if you look at the list of names, actually several of our consultants contribute to the testing guide, the OWASP testing guide. We also use another testing standard for network penetration testing, which is called the Pen Test Standard. It was endorsed by several great people in the industry, including Chris Nickerson and several SANS instructors. For a lot of our testing, where it's related to compliance with HIPAA or PCI, we use their standard as minimal due diligence, and we have our own standards that we use in addition to that. If you're actually working with an organization, we're happy to provide our sample reports as well as our full testing methodology. So there is no magic find vulnerabilities button. We have due diligence standards, and we go through them, and each and every single test is performed each and every single time. And we're happy to share those with any of our partners once they've signed an NDA.
Okay. Mike, let me toss one your way. Can you test SDN and NF services?
That's a good question. Today, if you look at virtualization, software-defined networking, network functions that are virtualized, you're seeing certainly a huge movement for more and more applications and networking being done in a virtualized environment, but many of the devices that have been traditionally relegated to physical devices on the rack and so forth, you're seeing virtualization of security elements, next-generation firewalls, IDS, IPSs, and other security services that are being put into virtual instantiations. Now, certainly, through our physical devices, things that have cables and connectors on them, we can plug those into virtualized environments from the outside to generate the traffic that we're talking about that would verify the resiliency and the capability of these services and these solutions that are with their intent to protect your infrastructure and your data and network access. At the same time, there's going to be times when you want to test inside the virtual environment. So we actually have tools where our test generators, our traffic generators, are actually installed in the virtual environment. There are no cables, if you will. So those agents or those engines are installed in the cloud, where you can do very specific virtualization testing, testing under fault moves of virtualized environments, redundancies, and a variety of other things that make virtual very popular, both from a cost perspective, but also from the scale perspective as well. So yes, I mean, we can get in and do that very specific testing, whether it's using physical devices or those that are specifically tailored for testing in virtual environments.
Okay. Vlad, I have a related logistics question here for you. For your cybersecurity services, is the testing done on-site or remote?
So that's actually completely up to the client. I am a big proponent of doing testing remotely, just because a large number of your attacks do come over the internet. So what we try to do is we try to simulate the attacker, a real threat as much as possible, using the same tools the attacker would be using, same techniques, except obviously what you're doing is non-malicious activity, because we're going up against test systems or QA systems, and we obviously have our IP addresses that have been provided to the organization, and most importantly, we have the organization's permission. However, for some of the sensitive applications, or if the client feels more comfortable, we could work on-site. Also, according to National Institute of Standards, based on successful compromises, about 65% of attacks come from malicious trusted insiders. So we work to conduct that kind of testing. We're using some authentication measures that have already been in place. We also need to be on-site to conduct internal network testing, because by the whole definition, the internal security testing has to be done from inside the network. And we find that even using the VPN, we're not getting the same kind of coverage as we would be if we were physically on the network. And obviously, with some of the more sensitive systems, they should never be placed on the network. For example, last year I was out testing a jet turbine that's used for power generation. We certainly would not want to see the device connected to the network, so I had to go on site.
Understood. Okay. Mike, let me toss one back to you. I do seem to be playing ping pong between the two of you, but assuming there are thousands of attacks, can you test them all at once? And I'm guessing this means on a particular network.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, we update the database of attacks on an ongoing basis, and yes, it is quite large. We're growing at about anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 new samples going into these databases every month. So it does get quite large, and in many cases, you want to relegate your testing to the top ones or the most severe, the ones marked with high severity, so you can limit your testing to verify if the latest attacks can be modeled and seen by your security infrastructure in your testing environment. However, there's going to be times when you want to do a large sweep that may include an entire database. I mean, if there's 15, 20,000 samples in that database, modeling a test for each one independently would take some time. So we do have the ability where you can select groups or even all. There's actually a very simple process for doing that, where you can select the entire database through the cybersecurity assessment function, and fundamentally it'll walk through every attack one after the other, verifying one if it's detected by the security countermeasures that you have in place, like a intrusion detection system, or if it's an intrusion protection system where it's blocking that traffic, it would also test for that. So you would actually see on a report, attack X, was it blocked or did it get through, and then on to the next, on to the next. So that whole test, after running for some period of time, would show up all those, maybe 10, 20 or more, 1,000 of these particular attacks in the database. So we make that very simple, so you can hit a button, walk away, and come back and see the net results of how well the infrastructure you're testing either did or, in some cases, what it might be missing. And then you concentrate on those things that it's missing to understand if you need to update firmware or go back to the vendor for further policy augmentation to the security devices and solutions to verify you have things kind of in order at that juncture.
Okay. Vlad, someone wants to know if your consultants have experience working with government.
Absolutely. So several of our consultants, including myself, hold a security clearance because we do work on several government projects. My background is I've actually spent several years at DARPA working on the Future Warrior Combat System and a few other projects. We have several other consultants actually that right now weren't able to join us for the webinar because they are on site at the facility. So we are very comfortable working with the government. We are GSA listed. We actually hired several disabled veterans. So that does help us work with some of the government contracts.
Okay, so you're pretty, your consultants are pretty well versed in government experience then.
Absolutely. They have a wealth of experience, including other consultants that have worked for DARPA, consultants that have worked for GSA, and as I said, some of the vets that came out of the service.
Okay. Let me add a question, put on my journalist hat. Are you finding that the vets who come out of the service have pretty much most of the expertise you need, or do they still require a little bit of training? That has been a discussion of late that the way to go is to get vets with cyber experience and bring them into the private sector when they leave the service.
So from what we've seen is people do require additional training, but so does everyone else. We continually take classes, even though we teach other classes. In this industry, nobody is ever ready and nobody ever knows everything. So education is a continual process. Vets do have a slight advantage because they have the Montgomery GI Bill, which is accepted by many credible training organizations and can be used directly for the training.
Mm-hmm. But you find they've got a lot of experience anyway, but they're just not completed as ready for your work.
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, that it requires continual training. Nobody's ever fully qualified, or nobody ever has all the training they ever need. Depending on the kind of projects we're working on, or as threats evolve, we may find that we need more experience in a certain area. So we'll send several team members for specific training, and then we'll have them come back and cross-train other members on it.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, someone says they need to model their own traffic in a test environment. Does your solution allow this?
Yeah, that's a good question. We provide a variety of different scenarios that a user can easily set up and quickly create mixtures of interesting traffic or reasonable facsimile traffic that they want to have in the test. Some percentage of HTTP, some percentage of Oracle database access, or whatever scenarios that might be brought to task at a specific amount, so you can verify how well that traffic is being presented on the network, and access time and latency time. But there are many cases where that emulation may not be fully suited in every environment. So we do allow for users to take captures, PCAP captures, of what they've modeled on their own, or what they've grabbed from their own infrastructure, bring that in, import that into the testing solutions, and then represent that on the wire in the test, whether it's kind of maintaining its original fidelity, kind of as is, and putting it back on the wire, or adjusting it, obfuscating and manipulating the original IP addresses to scale it to make something small into something perhaps larger from the original captures. So you can actually do a lot of what-if scenarios on what you're bringing in. And in some cases, I would say we've had examples of where users have brought in traffic that is, of course, modeled after normal sessions or normal conditions of their infrastructure, but even they're bringing in traffic that might be considered nefarious, or considered something that may be an attack or something else that might have been caught on the user's network, and then they want to bring that in for further identification or debug or assessment. So we allow that as well. So it's very flexible in the sense of using pre-modeled constructs or pre-modeled application scenarios, or allowing external traffic elements being brought into a test and then utilized on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Here's a question that seems to have come in on the heels of my follow-up question on your hiring veterans. Does your company offer training or certifications?
So we do not offer certifications. However, we do provide training. The most recent training that I actually ran was training several people at a chemical plant, and some of their SCADA operators wanted to become more familiar with the kind of attacks they may be able to see. And then we actually got them some training. We went out to the live lab for them, where we got them up and running, actually showed them how to compromise some of the systems, compromise the human-machine interface, emulate some of the components, modify some of the processes. So yes, we do conduct training for organizations. We don't put together individual classes. However, that may be an option in the future.
Okay. Vlad, going to throw another question at you, and that's if I understand this correctly. Do you have experience in IoT, Internet of Things, Z-Wave, Zigbee, space, or smart grid?
Correct. So we're not going to name the nation. It's a fairly small nation, where we actually went out and did a test on their planned rollout for smart grid. I have assisted on several penetration tests within the United States for smart grid and smart meters. We work with a lot of the smaller organizations that are launching their own home automation devices. They work with some of the larger, better-known names, and they wanted to have their own pre-flight testing done to ensure that they are secure when they're rolled out to all the consumers' homes. So we've seen a lot of wireless devices that have Wi-Fi and either Zigbee, Z-Wave, Bluetooth, or a combination of those devices. They're actually going to be hitting the market in the coming months.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'll say that concludes our Signal Magazine webinar for today. I want to thank Mike and Vlad, for their presentation, and thanks to all of you for joining us. Our presenters will try to respond directly by email to any unanswered questions in the queue. You can link to the archived version of this webinar along with previous Signal webinars on the Signal Magazine website at www.afcia.org/signal/webinar. Thank you again and have a good day.